Victor's been the number one overall prospect since pretty much what? The end of last year. Everyone's been hyping him up, kind of like summer league. I mean, like he kind of jumped onto the scene a little abruptly, but he has kind of like been gaining traction over the last full year in the NBA.
Yeah, I'd say the first time that I heard of him was maybe late 2021, early 2022, probably somewhere around that time frame. But with him only being 19 years old, he is definitely garnering a lot more of a social media influence, and that's despite the fact that he's over in Europe. He's playing over in France right now. But I mean, Kev, like you said earlier, the guy's 7'5". I mean, the guy is literally 6 to 7 inches taller than some opposing team centers. So that's a pretty big difference, especially with a kid who's 19 years old and could still have the potential to grow maybe another half inch to another inch over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing that we want to preview, right? I don't necessarily know if we want to go isolated here with the screen time because I kind of want to have an open dialogue here with this segment.
Yeah.
The big thing with Victor, right? To kind of just dive right into it, 7 feet, right? 7'5". Haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen somebody of that height, that actual length and height since Yao Ming's. Yao Ming was 7'5" or 7'6". Yao Ming was a lot bigger in stature, right? He was a lot heavier, he was a lot wider. Victor also has some lingering knee issues. Victor can shoot. Victor's got decent ball handling. He can finish at the rim. He can block shots. Like he's a definitive big, but he's athletic and he can space the floor. When was the last athletic 7-footer that we saw that could shoot and block shots? Pretty sure that was Kristaps Porzingis a few years ago. All the rage, all the hype. Yes, all Knicks fans, especially that kid, were like, "Who the hell is that?" They cried, and then he came out there and just flooded the garden with poster after poster, sharp shooting after sharp. I mean, rejecting shots. When Kristaps came into the league, when KP was a kid or a younger kid, he was just all over the place. He was a
Mm-hmm.
sensation. But the consistent thing was injuries. So I mean, like, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong here. The biggest concern for this prospect is he going to be able to stay healthy?
I mean, when it comes to Victor's overall physical stature, I mean, he's 7'5". This is a tall guy. But Kev, this guy, when it comes to Victor, is as lanky as what KD was back when he was in college. And KD was basically a stick. And not even that. KD was a stick throughout like the first couple years in his NBA career. I mean, there were highlights of KD back when he was with the Seattle Supersonics before they transitioned to the Thunder. It's soaking wet. He was just a stick. I don't know how much he weighed. He probably weighed like 185 to 200 pounds just because he was 6'10". But it didn't look like it just because he had no muscle whatsoever. When you look at Victor 7'5", it has that same physical and muscular stature that KD had. And Victor could technically even be skinnier. And one of the things that's going to be interesting to see as Victor goes into his NBA career, because it is going to happen probably within the next couple months or so, but he has to get bigger. He has to get into the gym and add some sort of muscle to be able to contend with NBA caliber players. And it was like you said, Kev, when it comes to him specifically, he's got a nice shooting stroke. When he's given space and he's given opportunities to shoot the rock, he can shoot from 15 to 20 feet out, and he could shoot behind the three-point line. It's just, is he going to be able to do that and gain space in the NBA? Because when we went over some of the game film that he's been a part of in this European circuit, you could just tell that the level of competition that he's going up against is not the same compared to what he's going to face in the NBA. It's just the overall pace. It's going to be a night and day difference. And for me, when I look at Victor, the biggest thing outside of gaining muscle is going to be just building up his overall athleticism. He has to get faster. And granted, he could use his size to his advantage, especially on the defensive side, because it's not going to take too many steps. It's not going to take too many steps for him to protect the rim, because he could literally probably take a step and a half from the free throw line and probably get to the rim, because being 7'5", it doesn't take that much effort to be able to take one step over, if not two steps over, to potentially block a shot or at least defend the rim. And if he's able to do those two things, build muscle and just build up his overall athleticism, I think that there's a chance that he could be a pretty good player in the NBA. I'm not convinced that he's just going to take the league by storm when he first comes into the NBA. Because we've looked at bigs in the past. You could look at Giannis when he first came into the league. Giannis was a stick compared to what he is now. Giannis gained like 25, 30, if not 35 pounds of muscle over the last couple of years. And he is a freight train compared to what he first was coming into the NBA. Now, Victor could have a similar type of progress when it comes to what he does in the gym, but I don't think he's going to have a build like Giannis. If anything, I think Victor's going to have a very similar build to what KD had, where he'll gain muscle as he goes along, but it's not going to be as prominent as what Giannis went through. But the difference between Victor and Giannis is that Victor's going to have he's going to have what, 7 inches on him when it comes to his overall height. I mean, that's going to be a big difference.
To think that somebody makes Giannis look little.
I know, and that's something that for me, it's going to be hard to gauge that and see how effective that Giannis could be against someone like him. And the biggest thing is just get bigger in the gym and just build up the athleticism. I think if he's able to do those two things effectively, I think 3-4 years down the road, if he's able to just improve his overall game on top of that too, he could definitely be a pretty big force in the NBA. But I think that first year, maybe the first 2 years in the NBA, I think he's just going to get adjusted to the pace of the game, which it's going to be a light years difference compared to what it is in Europe, just because I think the overall offensive pace is far more quicker than what it is in Europe. But I think Victor has some chances to potentially make some big moves in the NBA, but I don't think it's going to happen initially. It's not going to be like he's going to walk into the NBA and just take the league by storm. I don't think that's going to happen. But
yeah, I mean, the pressure that they're putting this kid on, I mean, we've heard comparisons to the biggest prospect since LeBron James, and that was obviously 20 years ago, and that's just, it's not the same thing, at least not in our opinion. That's a tall task for a comparison.
He's one of the biggest prospects. He's not but he's one of the biggest that we've seen in quite some time, and I think it's simply just because he's so tall.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Exactly. It's so, like I said, not to take away from what the kid can do, right? He's averaging 22 points a game this year. He's averaging 3 blocks per game, 9.5 rebounds per game. He's averaging 2 offensive boards per game. He's shooting 81% from the free throw line. But my biggest thing is he takes a lot of threes for a big. He takes almost 5.5 threes a game and only makes 1.5. That's 29%. That is a high volume shooter for a guy that's technically classified as the center. And I don't know if that's him trying to be flashy. I don't know if that's him forcing up shots. I don't know if that's him saying, well, I'm going number 1 overall, so it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm going to show that I can shoot the ball. So I will say that that's one thing offensively he needs to work on. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I watch every single one of his games. Kyle and I alluded to, we watched a couple of games. We watched a couple of highlights to see what he's really about. And again, he has a beautiful shot. He has some fundamental skills. He has solid footwork. But like we said, the injury thing we got to pay attention to. He already has knee issues at 18, 19 years old. That is something you have to monitor. Big guys like that do not last when it comes to foot, leg, knee, lower body issues. Horrible for them. I mean, look what happened to Greg Oden. Look what happened to Yao Ming.
Same thing.
Every single tall, big center. Look at KP. Now he's starting to get into a little bit more of a rhythm in Washington, but it took him years after New York, even in Dallas with all the other injuries. Like, people like this don't last long. And it's usually in short spurts where we see greatness, short flashes where we see how good he can be. And if he's going to go into the NBA this small, this injury prone, this weak, and from a strength standpoint, he's not going to last long. It takes one big guy to put a shoulder in his chest, and he's going to go 10 feet back. And he's going to say, holy shit, can I do this? So, again, not to take away from what he can bring to a table for an organization as a rim protector and overall somebody that can stretch the floor, he has a lot to improve upon, both physically and, of course, his athletic ability. But he is going to do very big things in the NBA if he can change or alter some of those features.